Good morning, everyone. I was working on videos last night when I saw on the Games Workshop web store a new thing had just like sneakily appeared on the store, kind of shadow dropped, that I didn't see any announcement for on the Warhammer community website. And it's just on pre-order. It's called the Vanguard Task Force. Now, what I find interesting about this is the fact that it's literally just the Combat Patrol Space Marines from 9th edition, but without the Impulsor, for $20 less. Now, if we look over here, this is 17 models, 18 with the Impulsor originally. It was $160. That's the standard price of all combat patrols. Here you also see 17 miniatures, this time including the Impulsor, because for some reason GW put the Impulsor in like every single Space Marine combat patrol. But yeah, whatever. It's now gone from the Vanguard Task Force, which again is minus the Impulsor, literally just the same models as the original Combat Patrol. Now, I did some math, because immediately the one thing I wanted to know is, does the $20 reduction in price make up for the value lost in the removal of the Impulsor? And so I did the math, and when you crunch the numbers, the Vanguard Task Force comes out to a price per model of $8, where the original Combat Patrol was a price per model of $9. So initially it might seem like a bigger discount, but we gotta remember that the Impulsor is an $80 kit. And so you're losing out on an $80 kit, sold to you for effectively $9. And so I wanted to do the math to see if this had impacted as well the overall price reduction, the discount. And so if you buy the contents of the original Combat Patrol separately, which is all of this, plus an Impulsor, though the suppressors are a little weird because they're actually exclusive to the Combat Patrol, and that'll become relevant later. But if we assume, if sold standalone, the suppressors would be $60. The contents of the original Combat Patrol would have run you $293.5. Meaning that the $160 Combat Patrol was a 54% price reduction. The contents of this box, when you take out the Impulsor, it is instead only $213.50, meaning the $140 Task Force is a 65% discount. So, it is a larger discount. Like, mathematically speaking, it is a larger discount, but the removal of the Impulsor might make it lose some perceived value. It's hard not to feel bad about losing the ability to get an $80 kit for, again, effectively $9. But I guess the only question then becomes is why are they doing this? Because the main reason why you bought the Combat Patrol was because of the fact that the suppressors were exclusive to it, and they've announced that they're making a new Combat Patrol for Space Marines out of the contents of the Leviathan box. So they're basically selling the Space Marine half of Leviathan as the next Combat Patrol. So you might wonder, why are they splitting off the Combat Patrol, the original Combat Patrol, into a separate, essentially, Battle Force box? And the reason for that potentially comes down to these suppressors. Now, the suppressors were originally, well, and the Phobos Lieutenant, come to think of it, these 4 models were originally locked behind the Combat Patrol. And so that actually increased the amount of people who bought the Combat Patrol because of the exclusive models. And so it might be an instance of them essentially horizontally transferring the exclusive models into a different exclusive value box set because of the perceived increase in sales that comes from having exclusive models inside value box sets. They might think that the suppressor kit, when kept exclusive to a value-added box set, makes them more revenue than if they sold it on its own. Because, how many people are really going to be buying, $140 worth of suppressors? I'd imagine most people will just buy like 1 box of them at most. And the same thing kind of goes for the Primaris or the Phobos Lieutenant. Nobody's buying $140 worth of the Phobos Lieutenant, mostly because you physically can't run that many. So it's entirely possible that they're just like keeping them here to continue to drive up sales of these box sets, while also having the Combat Patrol. And I really don't know how I feel about that as a tactic, but I mean, I kind of wish they would just release them separately, and I understand that from a business perspective, again, as I said, no one's going to buy $140 worth of suppressors or Phobos Lieutenants, but it just feels weird to transfer over the exclusive models into a different exclusive box set just to keep them exclusive instead of just releasing them for free, because these guys have been locked behind box set exclusivity for like years now, and Chaos Space Marines has this exact same issue with the Master of Possessions, where the Master of Possessions is locked behind an exclusive box that you actually can't buy anymore. The Master of Possessions was exclusive to the start collecting Chaos Space Marines. And so I guess the only question becomes, what about the other combat patrols? Because, there are other combat patrols, obviously, and they were made with 9th edition's rules in mind. So one makes me wonder, are we going to just keep getting these task forces that have all the same models, like minus the vehicle or minus whatever from the different combat patrols? So are we going to get a new Astra Militarum combat patrol, but instead it's called the Cadian Task Force or something, and it's all the same models, but it doesn't have the Scout Sentinel, or the same thing with like the Combat Patrol Eldari, but without the Wraith Lord. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think that's potentially a bad thing to do, because you're still removing like a big cool model from the combat patrol when you do that. Like this still, even though we've done the math, this feels like such lower value because of the lack of the tank. And so I don't know, will they continue to do this with the other combat patrols as they release replacement combat patrols for 10th edition? I don't know. I think it'd be kind of interesting if they did, if only because then that means we would essentially be doubling the amount of army starter sets we have, and assuming each of them are points costed to be around $500 or around 500 points, that means that now you would be able to get a 1,000 point army by just buying the task force and then the combat patrol, and that's a really nice idea. I like that a lot. But that depends entirely on if they do that with every faction or if they are just doing that with the Vanguard Task Force in order to keep these exclusive models exclusive. Yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. I just randomly saw this pop up on the Games Workshop web store in the middle of last night, and it immediately seemed like a red flag to me, and so I wanted to do a bit of an investigation and show you the results of my findings. So it's technically a larger discount. It is a 65% discount instead of a 54% discount, though it might feel like less of a discount than it actually is because of the lack of the vehicle. Please, Games Workshop, just release the suppressors and Phobos Lieutenant separately, for the love of God. Look out for that Deep Space Nine video sometime in the next couple of weeks. I actually have a ton of videos that are like really far along in the creation pipeline, so you're gonna see probably like 3 or 4 videos in the next like month and a half, and I'm really excited for that. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Do subscribe if you want to, and yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day. Storm Lord.